Welcome everyone to another I Get It Live session. Again, my name is Timothy Harrison. I'm a content creator and an Autodesk consultant here with I Get It, and mostly I deal with creating content for Autodesk Inventor, AutoCAD, any of the Autodesk product line. And if you have any questions specifically to this particular topic that we don't cover today, you can always email me at tim@myigetit.com, and I'll have that up on the screen a little bit later on. Again, so today we're going to be looking at a brand new feature in Autodesk Inventor 2023. Some cool little command that was added called the mark feature. And the objectives for today's session, we're going to look at the location of where you find the mark command within the ribbon. We'll create a mark feature using sketch geometry. We'll also create a mark feature using text from a sketch. We'll also look a little bit at the mark feature styles. So if you go into the styles editor, there's some changes and different things that you can modify to how your mark feature reacts when you create it. And then we'll just briefly look at how the mark feature is displayed when we bring that model into a drawing. And with that, we'll jump straight into Autodesk Inventor. All right, so here I have a sheet metal part that was already created, and I have a couple of sketches that I've created on this top surface so we can represent what this mark feature does when we create them. So in the model tab, I have a sheet metal part, so obviously we have a sheet metal tab, and there's a 3D model tab. And actually the command is actually shown in both locations. So in a normal model, we're not in a sheet metal part, we're looking at the 3D model tab in the ribbon, and on the modify panel, we have this new command here listed as mark. If you're in a sheet metal part, similarly, we also have on the modify panel, in amongst some of the other sheet metal commands, we also have the mark command listed here as well. If we go ahead and we'll select on the mark command, and we're given a properties panel, similar to most of the commands are starting to go to this mark panel, or I'm sorry, the property panel. And as we've shown in previous sessions, you can either dock this panel into the side of the screen, either side, or have it just float out here in space. And we just have a couple of options here. So we have an option, for selection set. So that's going to be our geometry that we select, and then the type of mark that we're going to, how the mark is going to react when we add it to this particular this part. So we're going to look at creating a mark with sketch geometry first. So we can select this sketch geometry that we've already created here. I'll just back out for 1 second. So I have actually two sketches just so we know we're all looking at. So we're looking at this sketch 12 right now that was already created in here. And we can go ahead and we can start selecting geometry in here. And I'm just going to select all these line segments. Like in other cases where if you hold the control key down, it will deselect, or you can just go around and select. You can also window select, just like you would in any other command within Inventor. So we've selected 16 objects, and we have two options here currently, mark surface and mark through. We'll just select the mark surface for right now. We'll select OK, and you'll notice that it did something here. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to go back up here to view, and we'll change the visual style just so we can kind of see this a little easier. We'll change this to shaded with edges. And notice now that it's created kind of a split or a cut in this top face surface. What's really cool about this, in the past, if you had a reason to kind of display something on your part face, but it's not really something you need to extrude, or doesn't really need to add or remove material. There was a couple different ways. I mean, I remember doing this kind of stuff in the past where I want to represent something here. Maybe it's just something that's getting painted on, or something that's getting etched on. So it's not really adding or removing material. So there was a couple of ways you could do that. You could create some geometry. You could do an extrusion of like 0.00001, so it's barely anything, so it would represent this. Or you would have to do an operation where you create some geometry to split this face. So with this command, it just quickly just creates that split in that face automatically. Excuse me. Because this now is a separate, face with on this surface, we can use that, and we can, add a different color to this. My menu comes up. So I think this is really, although it's kind of created that you're going to use this for etchings or engravings, I actually see a lot of use for this. So if you're creating different paint lines or different things that you want to represent on that surface and want to be able to change colors, this is a really quick and easy tool to do that. If we go ahead and we can right click this in the browser, we'll select edit feature, and this brings the property panel back up, and then we can change this. And let's change this to a mark through. Actually, before I do that, we'll see that it's only on that top face currently. We change this to mark through, select OK. Notice that now it actually creates that through the other side of the part. So the face that is on the opposite side of the part is also has that mark feature created on that particular face. I'll just change this one back to mark surface for right now. So that's using a sketch. We can also use text. So if we have this other sketch here, and I'll edit this for a second. So I just did the text command up here under create on the sketch panel. And then I created this piece of text here. If I edit this, notice we have, and I kind of wanted to show this, every font that you have that's loaded on your computer is available to select for the text in this particular window. And I just want to point this out and remember this for a second. We're going to come back to this in a minute, but we can create any kind of text you want here with any kind of font, so that we have this text on our sketch. We'll go back to the model panel here. We'll select mark. And now for our selection set, we can select this text. We'll select this as a mark surface. Select OK. And again, notice that it does a split operation basically, and creates that mark on this top face. Again, we just did the mark surface, so it's only on the top face at the moment. And let's say we're going to go back into that sketch. I want to edit that text. And let's say we're going to change this to, we'll select stencil. Select OK. So our font style updated. We'll finish this sketch. And notice, because we changed our font style on the mark surface, it updated that split operation basically that it does on this top face. So that's with the mark face. Well, now the reason why I pointed out the all the options for the fonts, we're going to go back here. We're going to edit this. We're going to select mark through and select OK. And notice it did something here. It changed what font style this is. Note it's marking through, and I think the thought process is here you're doing an operation where you're basically cutting, and so it's cutting through the part, I think is the thought process here. So the other font style I had wouldn't necessarily work. So where is this controlled? If we go to the Manage tab and we go to the Styles Editor, under the Styles and Standard Editor, we now have an option here for mark. We expand this. This is where we have our mark surface and our mark through options. If I select on the mark through, we have several options here that control how the mark feature reacts when you place it. So the mark depth, because this was already set as a through, so it was selected for through. This gives the option between whether or not it's marking just the top face that you're currently selected on, or if it's going through the whole part. And then we have options for text. So is it doing the outline of the text, or is it doing what they're calling as strokes? And then under strokes, we have font styles here, but notice it's a limited options for the types of font styles you could use here. If we go ahead and I'm going to select, we'll select Times, save and close. Notice that the text now updated in that mark feature. Now this particular one, edit my sketch. My I in here was actually a lowercase I, and this particular font style does not have a lowercase I. So if I just change that to a capital I, now that updates. So just something to keep in mind when you create the through with the standard style, you're using the strokes option, and you're using the limited options that it has in this particular drop-down list for the fonts. If I were to change this, I will go ahead and we'll select outline, save and close. Notice now it's using the outline of the font that I was using within the sketch. So just something to keep in mind when you use the, especially with, and this really only affects when you're using text in your sketch. What is your style set for? So if you're going to do a mark through, are you using, if you're using the standard one, which again was set for strokes, you might not get the result you thought you're going to get if you don't realize which options are set here. Looking further down here on the styles, there's export layers. So if we're going to export this to a DWF or a AutoCAD DWG, it gives some options here when you do the export. So it has a layer name set, the line type that it's going to be, the line weight, and the color for the front face. And then on a sheet metal part, on the back face, you have additional layer name, color, line type, and line weight. And again, this is for exporting, especially if you're exporting to an AutoCAD file, and then you're going to export this out to a machine that's going to do an engraving so that you can program your machine. You can change if you have a layer name that you would normally use for those particular operations, you can have it set here, and then when you export, that stuff's already set up for you. So then the other option here, these were, again, when we were looking at, save and close this. When we started the mark command, we had these two options, mark surface and mark through. Really what those are is you're looking at the style. In the styles and standard editor, we go mark through, we'll create a new one. And we're going to create, so we're creating a copy of this existing style mark through. We'll just call this mark through 1. Here we can change this to outline. And we're going to have it still as a mark, as the mark depth is through the part. We'll set save and close. So if we go back to this mark feature that we already had created in here, we select the down arrow here. Notice now that new style that we created is shown here in this drop-down list. So by default, it looks like there's only two options, a mark face, a mark surface, and a mark through. Really, there could be an infinite number, whatever you create, whatever you need for your particular part, you know, whatever your operation is that you do, you could create these styles and then have all kinds of different options on this drop-down list for the type of mark that you're going to make. Now, one thing to keep in mind with the style and standard editor, when you create this created a local style. So right now, this mark through 1 is located locally on my machine. If you needed that then to be used by other people in your organization, you'd need to then put that, either copy and copy it to all the machines locally, or set up your project file so that you're all looking at the same styles. That's a whole nother session, so we won't cover all of that, but just to keep that in mind, that this new one I've created, and then you want to hand this, your coworker wants to do the same thing, they're not going to see that new style because it's locally on your machine, unless you set up your environment so that they can, you can all see those new styles that you're creating. Save and close this. I'm going to edit this one. Let's change this to mark through 1. And then, so now we have our text is shown through on both sides of the part here. So that's the basics of the mark feature. One other thing we'll do real quick, and we'll see what this looks like in the drawing environment. So we're going to create a new IDW. We'll create a base view. I'm just going to scale this up a little bit so it's easier to see. And then we'll place a few views. I'll do one more projected view from this one. So here we got our, front view, side view, back view, front view. All our geometry that was created on those faces is shown in the drawing. Because this doesn't really add any material or remove any material, we don't really see any difference in the drawing, which is what we wanted. And in this case, the marked surface is shown as obviously as a hidden line, because obviously it's on the other side of the part in this view, and our mark through is shown solid lines because again it's marked through the part. We can also display this on the flat pattern. So on this particular part, because this was a sheet metal part, we can place our flat pattern in this drawing, and similarly on our flat pattern, all these graphics are also shown within the drawing. All right, and so that's basically it for the mark feature. Like I say, it's intended for like engravings or etchings on your parts, but like I say, I think there's a lot of options here, especially if you're doing a lot of visual stuff in your models where you're would have you want I want my text to be different colors on that surface. It's a really quick and easy way without having to do some kind of split feature, split surface, or creating a real minimal extrusion that then would be modifying the potential mass properties of your part. And it's a real quick and easy way to get these split faces to create different geometry and different visual stuff on your design. So it's a neat little tool. I think it's you can find a lot of ways to use this. And then additionally, if you do etchings or engravings, it makes it a whole lot easier when you do that export, because it's already got all those styles set up to export to your AutoCAD file or wherever else you're going to export that to. So real quick, I also wanted to mention, we have lots of Autodesk content, a lot of hands-on projects within our courses for Autodesk Inventor and all of our other courses. So please check out myigetit.com if you're not already a subscriber. We'd love to come on over, check out, see what we have, and learn some more stuff. I always like to point out we have our model-based definition for Autodesk Inventor, so that's a really good course if you're getting a lot more companies are going into model-based definition and 3D annotation within their designs. So we have a whole hands-on self-paced course for that as well. So check that one out for sure. Just double checking the the chat window. I don't see any questions at the moment, but if you have any suggestions or questions about this topic, feel free to contact me, tim@myigettit.com, and I'll try to get you any answers for this particular mark feature that you might have. And if you have any suggestions, I'm always open for suggestions for future live sessions. If there's a command that you are curious about that you haven't used and you're wondering how that might work or how you might be able to use it, something new within Autodesk Inventor, always open for suggestions. And makes my life easier to create new content for you guys. So if there's something that you would like to see, feel free to contact me, and I would love to try to get that in a future session. So thanks, everybody. That's a quick, easy one today, but always nice to see a new feature added to Autodesk Inventor with everything that's in there. Sometimes you don't see a whole lot of new stuff, a lot of updates, but not necessarily new stuff. So it's really cool to see a new feature in there. And again, so thanks again for attending today, and we'll see you on our next live session.